Well, hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to HETMA Presents. Today, HETMA Presents this month in Higher Ed AV for August 2025. We're here to discuss some of the big news and cool articles of the month. My name is Ryan Gray. I'll be your host, and lucky for you, you don't have to listen to me all day because we have three people to join in and bring some insight, far more than I think I could bring. So let's go around the horn and meet this month's panel. First, let's start with Mr. Andy Vogel. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing great, Ryan. Thank you so much. Excited to be here from The Ohio State University. It's our first day, so this is my lunch break where I get to do this real quick and then get back out there.
Nice. Well, thank you for joining us on your lunch break today and sharing on that front. Ann Kelly of UCLA, how are you, ma'am?
I'm doing good. Unlike Andy, we're not starting until a little bit later in September, so we're still in our getting dirty phase of our install period. So
California, it's late risers, everything starts late, school starts late. Is that how it works?
Yep. Pretty much. We're 3 hours behind everybody, so we'll be a month behind everybody else. So.
All right. And Mr. Tim Neviska, how are you today, sir?
I'm doing great, and we are kind of in between. We have the first year students in this week, and the rest of the classes come in later in the week, and it was a good week to take off.
Nice. I was going to say this is an interesting period for people because everybody's in one of those modes now, right? Something's getting started, we're about to get started, or we just got started. And, so a lot of emails go unanswered this time of year and everybody will get caught up, but this is why we do it. All right. Well, without further ado, let's get started. So we're going to kick off with Richard Jonker's piece that was actually published in AV Technology that makes a case that Pro AV has to move beyond hardware and embrace cloud managed software defined systems. Richard is, of course, from NETGEAR. So he framed it around NETGEAR's, push and their adoption of the OpenAV.cloud platform. But the bigger message is that we risk falling behind if we don't evolve. So for higher ed, that would mean rethinking infrastructure, less about boxes, more about platforms. So this is, I think, one of the more divisive conversations going on in AV in general, and I think in higher ed, it's a particular challenge depending on budgets. So let's go around the horn and start. When we're talking about, at its base, it's sort of the old school versus the AV over IP, but even beyond that, this kind of push to AV is just going to be an enterprise IT deployment looking like other things and less like AV used to look. So starting with you, Andy, how scary is that? Is this something we should be afraid of? We should be embracing? What's your kind of reaction to it?
Yeah, it's interesting. I recently did a talk on Aaron's EdTech podcast. Scott Tenner wrote a similar piece about open AV and standards of that, and talking about the cloud. We do a little bit of it here, and I would say the reason it's not a bigger adoption is because each vendor comes with, now it seems like, their own out-of-box solution. Maybe it's paid, maybe it's free with the hardware. I think it's something that it's not to be afraid of, but it is a big bridge that you need to build with your networking team on your IT campus and that sort of stuff. So that's the big piece. OSU, we're huge, so that's a lot of different departments doing a lot of different things and trying to get things to, be the same or centralized in that type of service is a tall order.
So obviously, the bridging gaps with networking and doing things at scale is a huge issue. And I'll throw it to either Ann or Tim, because you both talk about two different sizes of institutions that you guys are coming from. Where do things sit, and how are you and your institution sort of thinking about this?
I'll go first if we want. Don't mind me, Tim.
Go ahead.
Yeah, definitely. Those conversations might take years to for that integration of other departments of what does it look like for networking to scale this? What does the traffic look like? How many switches? What are their parameters? What are their rules? Like you are now involving a lot of things like whitelisted devices, all those things that we just have accepted so long of traffic and speed and PoE plus plus. Like those words we've been using for a while now, we're kind of actually, I wouldn't say impeding, but it's like you have to include those into what their network or how they expect that network to work. And then the other side to this is, as I've been in this business sadly for 30 years, really, when it comes down to it, where is the control? You are now trusting this, box to take all of your things into the cloud that you can't control to bring it back down to, do how you want it to do it. I know how to do that with devices and Matrix and all those other things. Now something else in the cloud that I really can't touch, I can't fix, I can't, just swap out a cable for, or something goes down, what does that look like? And it's not so much a trust factor of how do you practice those things in the field when it's something like when we see Zoom go down, the world goes, oh, I at my desk now, should I pull out that deck of cards that we always joke about having because we can't even function when Zoom goes down, or classes get canceled? How much it happens when we're doing it with just one program? Now our whole entire infrastructure is embedded into these things. So that's really one of those, where's the practice and how do we change ourselves to make sure that everyone is trained and skilled to know how to not so much deal with failure, but how to speed those changes along and be comfortable with just a Cat6 line controlling everything in your space.
So I want to follow up on one thing you said there, right? Which is, and you could tell me if I'm wrong, because it has that what you articulated in part of that. There was this need for AV people to kind of have control. Like we like to have things under our fingertips. This rack, this piece of gear, this thing goes from here, and I can manipulate it. As to where, if you're a sysadmin in one of these schools and you work in Microsoft 03, you're a 365 admin, your entire world is dependent upon cloud and that sort of thing. Do we as AV professionals have an issue with that sort of like the need for manual control that could actually hold us back in being able to move into a cloud direction? Like, will we get left behind if we have to hold on to that level of control?
I know my answer to that will be definitely like, where do you let go of your toolbox? Where's your toolbox, and where do you let go of it? I mean, I can cut Cat6. I can also fix a VGA. I can do all these old things, these old skills. I can cut it. I can cut coax. I'm one of the few people like with the kit still with me. It's an old skill. I don't need to do those things anymore. I've let them go. And I think that's part of the things of when we adopt these new mindsets, it is letting go of those things and really kind of putting them away and go, yeah, it was a good time while it lasted, but now I have to keep up with the trends, and what is it that you do take to adopt it? Don't shun it, adopt it.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Okay, so moving from UCLA to then Kim. Kim is when you take Kenyon and Tim and you mush it into one word. That's what comes out.
That'll work.
So that, moving from a huge public, what I'm saying, to Kenyon, how are you thinking about sort of cloud-based or IP platforms taking over audiovisual?
Well, so Kenyon is sort of like a large government body or the Catholic Church. We don't move very fast. It takes a long time. I mean, the last VHS players just went out of the classrooms maybe 2 years ago. Wow. The faculty are very adamant that they want things the way they want things, and so I don't see us being an early adopter. That's for sure. But reading that article, I think there was a little bit of a slant to it in that, we need everything to work together. Well, yeah, that sounds fantastic. And I agree that most things that are connected via an Ethernet cable probably are using different protocols, and one person's doesn't work with another. But I mean, for many years, we have had interoperability. If RS-232 worked on everything, as long as the manufacturer would give you the codes, you could make, brand A's box work with brand B's, even if brand A and brand B wouldn't write drivers for each other's gear. But I would love to see at least that part of it. I'm less comfortable about everything going up in the cloud. My daughter works in higher ed in cybersecurity, and I've been to some of the conferences. There's a lot of bad stuff that can happen when you put everything out on the cloud, and not the least of which is not even a cybersecurity thing. It's kind of like Ann mentioned, when the network goes down, and now you're going to tell the faculty, well, none of your stuff is going to work today. It's out of my control. It's out of my hands. I can't just come in and plug in the cable that got kicked out of the wall today. It's Microsoft or whoever is controlling this now. And I know our faculty will fight with us about that if we try to go that direction.
Yeah. So you're totally right. Two quick follow-ups and a thing that makes me think. So like you said, you're in a place that, the last VHS just left, and I think your experience mirrors a lot of people in higher ed's experience, right? They're smaller places tucked in the corners of everywhere that aren't necessarily, not in the place to be, early adopters. Does this whole conversation sort of feel irrelevant for you right now because it would be so far in the future given how slow things get adopted? Or is it something that you think, it's, you got to keep your eye on it regardless, even if it's not on your doorstep yet?
I think for us, we need to keep our eye on it. Like I said, I don't see it happening very soon. And in fact, we do AV over IP, but we do it in such a way that it's a separated system with just a bridge to the campus network. We do not put all that traffic onto the campus network. Our network people are like, no, not on our network. There's right. Still that opinion, and I know that's changing across the industry, but we're a small department, and so they can still say that.
Yeah, that conversation is such a institution to institution thing, depending on the history and the personalities involved and that sort of thing. Because it's the same thing. You have big places that have adopted it and big places that are doing the same thing that says that we're not touching any of that traffic on our network, build it separate. So, and then you mentioned one other thing. You mentioned, it feels like kind of there's a slant or a perspective in that article. Obviously, it's written by somebody who works at NETGEAR, and they want to sell the boxes that are going to move these things. And so, they would love to see huge interoperability in this realm, because the better the interoperability, the more adoption, the more switches you sell. And it feels like the Trons or even the other, everyone's got a flavor of AV over IP, and no one has yet really said, we're all in on interoperability on that, outside of, Dante and some of the audio ones and things that are out there. So there's throwing it back out to everybody, looking at it from the industry standpoint. Do we think this will follow kind of what other things have, which is at the beginning, it's more profitable for everybody to try and build a silo, and someday that profitability model will change, and that's when we'll see common standards emerge? Or is that just a pipe dream, and we'll all be talking about our, Crestron's flavor versus Extron's flavor 20 years from now?
I think it's interesting, with NETGEAR, because they're established in the networking field and world. And so that has a promising tie when you're building those relationships with your sysadmins or whomever, that, there's those standards and things will be followed. So I think looking at it from that way of the product, the establishment with that product, and who is their current user base, that's what's gonna, guide the AV over IT, or AV is IT kind of narrative. And I continually kind of see things heading that direction. I think it'll be a little bit of what you said, Ryan, like there'll be some of the, profit building there up front, and then later it'll, we'll kind of flatten and see what's still standing, what's out there. But right now it's just everyone kind of has their own flavor, and it seems like, even microphone brands are, has a cloud system that we can, remotely control, or you can contact their support. I think everyone's going to kind of come out with that. And then of course they'll add an AI widget to that too, to even further, make it complex, good or bad. So yeah, I think it's going to continue upward for a while, and the standard brands are the ones that hopefully stand out and have that brand recognition where we can work with our IT folks and networking.
Yeah. And it's a good point. If folks haven't, especially if you're just dabbling, like you're getting into AV over IP, or you're in a place where, as the AV people, you have to build your own network, those the NETGEAR AV lines are worth looking at. They're, trying to do a Cisco switch out of the box is not an easy thing.
Right.
And man, they've built a GUI in there that's like AV person friendly. So I would take a look at those. Yeah, Tim, and anything else to add in there? I think everyone has a dream of the future of fully interoperable AV over IP. Is that something we should actually be hoping we'll ever see, or not even worry about it?
I don't know. I've been around this for about 40 years, and it hasn't happened. And it's interesting if you look at the companies that have jumped into this consortium. None of the big control companies are in there. So that kind of tells the story of how it is right now, as Andy mentioned.
Yeah, it'll be who's still standing in 20 years. They'll really, will they develop something new that is totally encompassing and be able to, level out the playing field? Or are we still going to be dividing things? Are we still going to be having, we talk about the big three now. Every single time we go to Infocom, who's been bought out, who's been absorbed, who's now with somebody else, who's now independent and leaving the field and doing something completely different. And so it's to say we'll get there. I don't know. Will it get there in my career? Probably not.
Yeah. Andy said one of the keywords, or one of the he mentioned AI, and that would bring us to Article 2 this week by our own Mr. Andy Vogel. So it's the introductory column of his AI Insights column, I guess. That's going to be a bi-weekly feature at hiredav.com. And he started with a strong reminder that before we lean into AI, we need to be able to validate what it's doing. So it was kind of cool. He lays out kind of through real world situation, kind of tips and things to look at, and where it was helpful, and how to kind of not blindly trust some of the things that we're seeing. And it gives kind of a practical, grounded approach to AI. I think in a place and time where there's people that are all in on AI tools. There's people that are really afraid of them, and it was a good kind of reminder of, even the world of AI, we still need people in a pretty key way. So Andy, let's start there with kind of this first installment where you're talking about, picking up the bass guitar and trying to have AI help you learn something. I'm surprised you don't have your bass with you. I was hoping maybe we'd get a performance today, something like that.
I'll do it next time. For sure. I might drive all my coworkers nuts, but that's okay.
There you go.
Yeah, so we are a Microsoft Copilot shop, but we're also now a Google Gemini shop, and we, officially, but unofficially, I dabble with, OpenAI, and I'll, pick your poison. There's a tool out there. But I started playing bass, just a couple months ago, and I had the idea. I was like, I wonder if AI could help me do this. And the reason, what intrigued me was, okay, in real time, I can kind of test the feedback by playing the notes and seeing, okay, does that actually sound accurate? This is me validating it and going back and forth with it. So, I found that it's too easy to say hit or miss. and like it's hard to put a percentage of the accuracy, but it's definitely not 100%. What's interesting is you can ask it to look up tablature for you, so like where your fingers should be on the fretboard and that sort of stuff, and when to strum and whatnot, and that's pretty cool. And there's already tools out there that do that for you, but it's interesting because obviously the AI is scraping the internet. Maybe it's finding a Reddit forum, or maybe it's finding Guitar World or something, whatever, and pulling that in there, but it may add its own flavor or interpretation, and then of course you play it back and see if that's accurate or not. That has been a very fun and interesting way to try it. So if you're a musician and that's something you're really into, or you're even skeptical of AI, I invite you to do that and see how well it works. But that was the big thing for me, because as we move forward with the university here, we're doing a whole AI fluency course. So all students who will graduate now will have taken coursework on prompt engineering and understanding AI and understanding how to identify passages or artwork that has been generated by AI. And it's some of it I think is a little buzzwordy, but other parts I'm like, there is a definite need of understanding and being able to incorporate these tools appropriately. Some feedback we've had is, when it rolled out, 2022 now, students were copying and pasting answers from AI products and not testing or validating, and it was getting flagged by the system. It's just, and that's not what we want to teach, and that's not what students come here to learn. So we want to show them steps from not only using these tools properly, but being able to like check it. It's like having a conversation like with a very confident person, but making sure they actually know what they talk about and just validate. It's almost what I'll end here, but the thing I find the most valuable about it is if you have it asking you questions or having you prompting it to prompt you to check your own work. That's when I spent the most time. And at that point, I really wasn't using AI a whole lot. I was like, okay, now I need to go back and try this, or maybe I need to play this, or maybe I need to tune it this way, or maybe the tempos are wrong. So yeah, a lot of fun stuff there. Yeah, but like I said, I'll end on that note.
Nice. It's obviously, it's AI in general, huge topic, but I liked sort of the metaphor that you set up there, which is I'm going to take this small thing that I'm working on and really use that as a way to explore it. And I've thought a lot about it. So it gives you those tools of like, okay, well, maybe someone's trying to use it for a bigger project. Are you doing some of these same things to make sure that, your project doesn't sound like a bass riff that is wrong because it's portraying a confidence that, doesn't actually exist in its output. So in that term, turn to you, Tim. How is generative AI landing both for you and your institution? Are there things you're finding to use with it, or is there still, or is it more of an unknown? Because I'll say this way, Ohio State's, obviously huge, all in on AI. My institution, my president, literally in our strategic plan is normalize the use of AI across the board in what we do. So I know that I have a skewed view of this because of that. So I'm looking for help me understand what this looks like in places that in the rest of the world.
So yeah, out in the heartland, so to speak. And I have to remember, I'm at the county fair this week where AI means something completely different. So I have to switch gears here. But yeah, there's several faculty who have been diving deep into things like ChatGPT over the last several years, have done some talks about it and things like that. I would say it is more, in the last couple of years, it's been more of a issue with students using it in ways that they should not have been using it. So that's been most of the talk, has been in the faculty meetings about, how do we put a stop to this, or teach the students that, using these tools is fine, but there's a limit to it. You can't just copy and paste and call it your own work. That's cheating, by definition. But yeah, I wouldn't say that we're any place close to where Ohio State is, for sure. But reading Andy's article, I was struck by how he used AI for several different steps. First step was, well, let me see if I can use AI to pick out my equipment, my bass, my amplifier, and then move on from there, and then start with the rest. And so that'll kind of lead me into how I've actually used AI. As I read his article, and it was music and AI. He was a stepbrother-in-law, was a professor at the University of California at Santa Clara, and he is known worldwide as the godfather of AI music, David Cope. Well, David passed away earlier this year, and he started back in the 70s, but really made it big through the 80s and 90s in developing AI that would write music in the style of Beethoven or Mozart and so forth. And so he was criticized, pretty widely among musicians as that doesn't have any soul. It takes a human to make music, and so it's soulless music. And so they gave him the nickname the Tin Man because it had no heart. And he commented one time that his wife, who was a classic pianist, was probably the only musician in the world who was still talking to him. So he like I said, he passed away earlier this year. They had a memorial service for him, which was live streamed. And my stepsister-in-law sent out an email to the family that, apologizing. She had the link for the thing, but she said the audio was really bad and was apologizing for it. And there were two pieces in there that she really wanted people to hear. And the one was the eulogy, which was there was a documentary done about his life a couple of years ago, and the people who put that together actually did a Cope GPT so that they could kind of get his message through AI. And so the person who did the eulogy actually asked Cope GPT to write his eulogy. So I downloaded the video, and the audio was really horrible. And I tried a couple of the standard tools, take it through Audacity and some of these other things. Mm-hmm. And then I said, I wonder if there's an AI tool out there that could do a better job at cleaning up this audio so we could actually hear it. And I found a Adobe Podcast AI tool, which made it. Was it perfect? No, but it was better than anything else I've ever used at just being quick and easy and cleaning it up. So, yeah, so I'm a fan of, using tools in the right manner, for sure.
That's a great story. I love that sort of
that's awesome.
That's a full, now I've got somebody to go look up too. And, learn the story of.
I encourage it. His story is fascinating.
That's awesome. All right, Ann, up to you then. Yeah. You got to settle the debate of AI once and for all.
Oh gosh, no pressure. It's like today, right now. It's definitely learning how to use it. UCLA has an amazing adoption of AI. There's a whole governance, it's a whole department, and it's about questioning. I like to mature the information that is available. yeah, as referenceable points, and it's so funny is when we keep talking about it in that sense, it just feels like a really big Google search. Don't quote me on that, but not to dumb it down the statements, but it's like I was a generation in college that had Netscape to look for things. And we did do the horrible things of copying and pasting and not exactly plagiarizing, but it's like, oh, well, I'm not going to go to the library in the card catalog and information, extract information. I'm just going to do this one thing. Now, 25 years later, here we are saying the same thing about students using ChatGPT and all these things to cheat their way through papers and what we call cheating, because it's not that absorption of information, the process to absorb it and what, sure, you could spit out an answer because you found the answer, but in 10 years, will you still know that answer? And that's where I think when it's acceptable to study what people are using it for, that's where it's there, it's out there. Teach the kids how to use it. My son's a science teacher in middle school, and he literally just put out a thing to one of his grades. I think if they were going on high school, going, I want you to find an answer, one question and find 4 different answers in the AI realm, and they were able to come back with 3 out of 4 wrong answers, and what was the right answer? So it was that critical thinking, the ability to still teach critical thinking with the availability of having all these answers at your fingertips.
Not to drop another name, but at ASU, there's a professor, Dr. Punya Mishra, who does a lot of writing on this, and we've worked with him some. And he says, generative AI, you need to treat it like a drunk intern, and you're gonna be on about the right footing of what to do. Andy's second installment of that came out this week, so I'd encourage everybody to continue watching every other Tuesday for AI Insights with Andy. You want to give people I'll just say this, if you the next one is about cycling, using AI involving long-range cycling. So you know what I'm saying? It's a cool cross-section of like real life and AI and how it works. So appreciate that contribution.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Article 3 for the month. We have the author with us again. So Tim did what in our thing we call My Take, or it's a personal essay. It was a reflection on his experience at Infocom this past year, where the last Infocom he had been at was 2019, and then not again till 2025, and sort of his takeaways on the differences he saw there as a person in higher ed. So I'm curious, Tim, would you first just sort of give us a quick rundown of what was that experience like? What were the differences you saw being a higher ed end user at Infocom over that, what changed over that 6-year time period?
I'd say the takeaway is that we're no longer seen as just another end user, that the manufacturers and integrators have come to the realization that we're kind of an in-between somewhere. Sometimes we are the integrators. And I told Joe Way on his podcast recently, I see our faculty and to a lesser extent our students really as our end users, because where we are in the process is not really an end user unless I'm actually using it. So if I'm doing an event with the equipment, okay, I'm the end user. But otherwise, if it's in the classroom, the end user is the faculty. And so and what I noticed at Infocom this year is we're getting treated more like the integrators are by the manufacturers, and much more willing to talk shop with us as if we were equals and not just somebody who might pop a DVD into a player or something.
Yeah, it's been interesting being, sort of, when you first articulated that, having that moment of like, it's been interesting being around, being at every Infocom for a little while and seeing going oh yeah, I've seen that same evolution, but for you to step in with this like contrast and what is actually not that long a time period, I was like, that is something like to remind everybody and share. So turning it back over, let's go to Andy. So, Andy, no stranger to these types of, to Infocom and other trade shows. And you've been around the industry a long time too. Have you seen some of that same change? And like, again, I would love to give HETMA all the credit for doing that. Is that the case? What are the structural changes in the industry that have kind of led us down this direction?
I definitely think that helps, because I think a lot of vendors realize our role is like, we're almost like the relationship manager or consultants for the end users, the faculty, staff, admin, whomever. They want to make our lives easy as possible with whatever product they're selling, because we're ultimately the ones that have to support it, but we also get the feedback, the unfiltered feedback from the end users that we can, broker to the vendor. And we can do that in a way, like looking at big picture things. Maybe we have a unique network setup, or maybe we're decentralized. We have all these different units and they use Extron, they use Crush, whatever. But we can kind of, speak to that in a way that's constructive for the vendors to hear. And having us being organized as HETMA and being able, okay, yeah, we're different institutions, but we have a lot of the similar problems and things like that. And that allows the vendors to kind of identify, okay, higher ed's, unique in this way. So we can listen to them, through these channels. Things like the approval process through HETMA is a perfect example of that, because, I'll tell vendors, I'm like, put it through there, because it might not work on my environment at all. That doesn't mean your product's necessarily bad and not right. It's just not the fit for us. And so that allows, more conversation for them to maybe to kind of rapidly prototype their stuff a little more, or maybe it works at Kenyon College, and that's where it, that's the consumer base. So another thing I want to add is just like the value of just kind of like, we all work on campus, the in-person, need of this, like being able to talk to folks face to face, because that's what we do. We go to classrooms or we go to events and that sort of stuff. So we have that relationship manager, face-to-face business. And so I think that also a lot of these vendors and sales folks, they have a similar, role with their products. So I think it's where we get those, best of both worlds, and we're able to find a way to have these pathways and make things work.
Cool. All right, Ann, I'll give you the last word then. Not only have you've been in the past few years, different roles in the industry, different institutions, different sides of the country. Yeah. So what is, and lots of different pathways into higher ed for you, given your experience. So is this, have you seen something similar, and what has it meant for you?
Oh gosh, yeah. I started small school, and I would beg to go to Infocom, and I had to wait for a budget rotation to claim that money first from other conferences for other people. And it was like I finally got to go, and it was the COVID October Infocom. And walking around with a name tag from a school that nobody ever heard of. And they're like, well, how many classrooms do you have? And it was like, okay, less than 100. And that's all they were doing, was doing the money math in their head of, am I a valuable customer? Why am I going to talk 5 minutes with her when somebody from a 200 classroom institution, a 400 classroom institution walk by, and I miss my chance, or I miss whatever. And that has shifted completely, because when you do, when it's I might be one, but I could be standing with 4 others, and combined we might have 500 classrooms, and we all have the same network structure or budget constraints, or I'm a healthcare school, somebody's a humanities school, and yet we're still doing things with the same tools. What does that mean, pedagogically? And we all have to wear all those hats in those small worlds. So it's like that. I'm so grateful to have that for those who are living that world and having to choose, make those choices. But getting that time to talk collectively, face to face, that one-on-one, that person sitting in front of you, is a very overworked person, and their time is extremely valuable because they have to have a lot of answers to a lot of things. So that for me, like that transition from the first time I went, before HETMA had floor space, to now helping create floor space now, and themes, and like you actually get to walk the show floor and like not just eat, sleep, breathe InfoComm for like 3 whole weeks and pack it up and know how the doc manager works. There's that part of it too, but yeah, I do all those things gratefully. But yeah, it's that collective, to discuss to have like a group go together or have them come to us. Which happy hours are one thing, but then you have all these people there at your, within your 20 by 20 floor space, and that making those connections, or somebody who may not, they're climbing uphill to be seen. So yeah, that's been such a great platform and to be a part of. So
yeah. I couldn't agree more. And Tim, I really appreciate you taking the time to write this and put it out there. Yeah. I encourage everybody to go read it because it mirrors mine too. I've tried to tell people at my school, if there was ever like, one of those big mass surveys for, celebrities get a Q score, like how many people recognize their name. If there was ever like a Q score done on Yavapai College, Pro AV would be this weird place where the word Yavapai would be known in a spike that makes no sense because of this. You know what I'm saying? There's no reason that people at these companies or people in the pro AV industry should care about a community college in rural Arizona other than we have an alliance where if you're talking to one of us, you're talking to all of us. Yeah. And whether it be collective and you one of the great pull quotes in there is higher ed more than ever is speaking with a unified voice. Mm-hmm. And what I love about it is it means the students at my school get better technology and they get a better experience because of it. I appreciate Tim, you sharing this perspective.
Yeah, that's I think is as I have my youngest is graduating college, and I remember going on those tours, being someone who had been working in higher ed for a good 15 years by that point, going, I'm keeping my opinions to myself. They would never want me to come with them on open house tours.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, but at the same time is the small schools have to compare. They have to look as glossy as the big schools that they're on tours with, or the private schools with the names on buildings and amazing funding. And that competitive to draw students in is exactly the same for whatever their degree program or maybe just a small school lifestyle, that kind of thing. But you still need to sell to the parents that their educational spaces are at par with everybody else collectively. And that was like something I always like took with me whenever I go to conferences, whenever I go to whatever I could get my hands on. We had to be the same.
Yeah.
Scale. It's just scale.
And I throw the same way for community colleges too, that idea that, it's a trade off, it's a trade down. You're just going to your 5th year of high school versus you're going to get the same or better technology experience here than if you spend the money and go get an apartment in Tempe and pay tuition somewhere else. Yeah. You might be able to do it without debt, do it here. And one of the debts you're not incurring is a technology experience debt in doing it. So it's made a huge difference. Yeah. See, what a fun note to end on. That's awesome. I love it. All right. First, thank all of you for sharing your wisdom, and I encourage all of our listeners. The links for all 3 of those articles are in the show notes, so if you haven't seen them, please click on them and hear words from Tim and Andy in particular, and the discussion of AV over IP from NETGEAR. So before we close, let's go around the horn. Tim, thank you for being with us. If people wanted to get in contact with you or learn more about yourself or the membership committee and HETMA or Kenyon, how would they go about finding you?
Membership at hetma.org is the email. You can reach me via, if you're already on the HETMA community, you can reach me via chat, or I'm available on LinkedIn.
And I'd encourage everybody to go pull him up. And yeah, I'm going to tell you right now, man, Tim, if you look at the podcast game, right, Tim is, I think, you're right. You were on the Hired AV podcast this month. You were on Chair to Chair this month. Now you are taking the world by storm, my man.
People are going to get tired of me.
No, yeah, AV's newest celebrity. It's awesome. I love it. Okay, Ann Kelly, how about you? How would people find you or learn more about what you are up to at UCLA or in all your other extracurricular activities?
Definitely on LinkedIn. See Ann Kelly. See the letter C first. You can find me there. And of course, HETMA on the membership page. You can find me there as well with all my contact information.
Cool. And everybody, I encourage you to do that too, because if you ever, have something you need a funny but really insightful perspective on, throw it to Ann Kelly. She will cut something in half in a way that you didn't expect it to be cut in half. You know what I'm saying? It's she's a good one to reach out to for advice. I'd put that.
And we can add pirates and musical themes to any of that.
Yeah, you have no idea what all is going to come. Oh, and I can't, hold on, I'm going to scoot to the side for anybody watching. You will see, of course, my HETMA cape, handmade by Ann Kelly, hanging on the wall here in my home office, which is a prized possession of mine. And finally, Andy Vogel, how would people reach you, find out more about what's going on in HETMA Communications or at the Ohio State University?
Yeah, so communications at hetma.org, or as Tim said, you can reach out to me on the HETMA message board. We're on the app there. Trying to, get daily connections and networking. So please, if you haven't dived in there yet, do so. And also, of course, I'm on LinkedIn.
All right. Well, thank you all three for being here. I would encourage everybody, like I said, go read these articles, and I'll put another call out in there that if you've got a thought or something you'd like to say or share, follow Tim and get in contact with me. Let's get it written up and let's get it published. And next month you can be on this podcast sharing your perspectives, because it is all of our ideas that come together, I think, that make us a great community. So, and then stay tuned to higher@av.com every day in the month of September. We're getting ready to roll into our third month of the Road to 10K initiative. September is all about building systems and processes and habits. So stay tuned for HETMA Presents the Road to 10K. We'll be talking about that, installments of all of our shows and columns, and continuations of Andy's new column on AI and some new features coming to Higher at AV in September. And with that, I'll say thank you to everybody. And today, that's all the time we have for HETMA Presents. Thank you for tuning in to HETMA Presents. This show is a production of Higher Ed AV Media. Please visit higher@av.com to learn more about this show and a host of others. The views expressed here are not necessarily those of our respective institutions, employers, or sponsors. We'll be back soon with another installment of HETMA Presents.